Welcome to the Orient Sportscast Podcast, the most refreshing analysis, insight, and opinions in the world of sports. Here are your hosts, Josh Egan and Brandon Waterhouse.
Alright guys, everybody, welcome to the Orient Sports Class. I'm Josh Egan, along with my co-host Brandon Waterhouse. Let's get this thing started. Brandon, why don't you tell us about yourself?
All right. Wow, Josh, I'm excited. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's calm the nerves here a little bit. First things first, jersey check. All right. What you got over here? I see an A on that jersey. What we got? Anything on the back?
It's a fake Joffrey Lupul Winter Classic jersey. I think everybody in Toronto was rocking one of these.
This is, in honor of the man the other day. It was a couple anniversaries ago, I guess, of that home run bat flip, eh?
5 years.
Yeah, man. So like you said, my name is Brandon Waterhouse. So we go to Humber College together, and we're in sports management. I guess this is our second year. We're both mature students, I would say. Yeah. Maybe you're definitely slightly more of a mature in age student than I am, but I'm not like the same age as the regular freshmen, obviously, that we're talking about.
I'm 20, for anybody wondering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm 21. Mm-hmm. And so we're in our second year, midterms of our third semester. Yeah. And that's where we're at right now when we're recording this. So I've actually only had one midterm. I think you've only had one, so it's actually, we're kind of...
My first one's tomorrow.
Oh, you haven't had the operations one?
No. That's
right. So
Thursday. Although I'm sure everybody listening.
We do have a lot of things on the go right now, but this is super important to us. And like just talking about sports has been something that I personally have been done and involved in since I was probably aware of sports. Not that my opinion mattered much, not that it does today either, but just to have someone else who has some knowledge on how to put a little bit something together professionally is great. So now I can talk and I can use my voice thanks to you, because you have a lot of information and establishment in the industry already, which is great. So I'm glad that you reached out to me and asked me to join with you, because that shows that you kind of respect my knowledge, and through the first year we met each other and my experience and my grades or whatever you saw when we hung out in first year, and that first weekend of cabining together, bunking together.
That trip.
Dude, think about that. When you think about that, that was the first time, not even maybe in class we started sitting beside each other, but that was it. That was when we had a real conversation, I'm sure. That was, and I feel bad. Honestly, I can't say I feel bad or feel great, because I know there's a lot of people who disagree, but for the people who have to miss out this year on that trip because of COVID-19, it's super unfortunate. But like I said, even some of the teachers I know have recognized that there were some flaws in last year's camp, but people aren't probably too worried about going this year.
Yeah, we won't bring those up.
We won't bring this up. But I am definitely advertising and promoting the Humber Sports Management Program, 100%.
Sure, it's a great program. All right, well, in the NFL, we had quite a few games this weekend, but one that stood out to me was it was the Dolphins-Jets game. That Jets team's really bad. So, a quick question: in a no-COVID world where we could travel the border and all that, could the Toronto Argonauts beat the New York Jets?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Like you said, the Jets 0-6 or 0-5, right?
0-6 now.
So you know me, I'm a Giants fan, so to hear that coming out of that state is great. We were 0-4, I think 0-5, until we pulled off a 1-point victory against the Redskins this weekend, which is great. But to your point about the Jets, I've been seeing a lot of things about they're hopeful towards Trevor Lawrence. So you can see the fact it's not even halfway through the season and they're looking past already. So not as a personal Jets fan, I'm too interested. But as far as the Argonauts go, there's a huge difference. I mean, what do you think, an NFL or CFL field?
I really don't think it matters. They could play on a high school football dirt track, and I think.
Then there you go. Your answer is my answer. Your answer, right? Your answer is my answer on this one.
I mean, both New York teams are equally horrible. They could combine squads and still be the worst.
Who's the quarterback for the Argonauts? Are you aware?
I don't know if they have one right now. I don't follow this.
Ricky Ray, recently retired.
Yeah, but it is a shame with the CFL because I do enjoy watching CFL football, but obviously they're not playing this season, so hopefully they'll be back soon. But with finances and all that stuff, they weren't able to secure.
It's an interesting question, man. It's hard as a professional sports fan, especially if you're an NFL fan, to really understand how a professional group of NFL players go in whatever 0-15 has happened or 0-6. It's just really frustrating, I'm sure, as a fan. And I've been there as a Giants fan the last few years, and it's definitely taken away from the love and the experience of the NFL that it brought.
Just wanted to bring it up because I thought it would be a little bit of a just throw some heat towards a fan base that I don't really care about that much.
That's a good take.
Another game of note was the Steelers and Browns. This was supposed to be a pretty big game because both teams finally when it was supposed to be a competitive game. And,
right.
I threw it on and I was like, this is gonna be a close game, and the final score was 38-7. Baker Mayfield didn't even finish the game. They put in the backup QB.
Right.
Just
brutal.
This story has Browns written all over it. I mean, the Steelers go in there, just dominate them all over the field, and Baker couldn't get his shit together. Throw in the backup QB. It still doesn't make a difference. Are the Browns the most overrated team in the NFL? Did they just have a bad game? Like, what are we looking at here? What do you think?
Right. Speaking of overrated, the Patriots, Cam Newton said not to worry, actually, after starting 2-3, and that's like the first time I've seen in a couple of years. It's been a while since Bill Belichick started below 500. But back to your point about the Browns and Steelers, obviously it's nice to be Canadian because Chase Claypool is a Steeler, and he is doing multiple amazing things down there in Pittsburgh. So I wasn't too ashamed to see this score, to be honest with you, but the potential I saw from the early Browns this season, rather, definitely led me to a direction to believe that score would be a lot tighter.
Yeah, I was expecting a close game. I thought it'd be good. I thought it'd be the best game of the weekend. Didn't they just come off of throwing receiver-to-receiver touchdowns across the field the week prior, right? Like, come on. The previous week, they looked good. I thought this game was going to be a lot closer than it was, obviously. But the Steelers have been rolling, so maybe we weren't giving them enough credit.
Next, actually, I was just looking at it, but sorry to interrupt you. The Tennessee Titans, I think it was overtime. Was it actually over the Texans
this weekend?
I think it went. Yep, I think it went to overtime. The Titans and So the Titans. I actually saw a lot of interesting videos on the internet over the weekend about the Titans head coach. He takes part in these pregame drills with his linemen. And I gotta send those to you, but I know for the viewers out there who are Tennessee Titans fans or NFL fans, you know that let me find the quick name of the Tennessee Titans coach real quick, because that would make me to refer to him a lot more easily.
Yeah, that.
Mike Vrabel.
Okay, yeah.
Mike Vrabel. Yeah, it's Mike Vrabel. So anyway, this Mike Vrabel guy is seen on multiple videos, honestly, around the internet. He's putting on this. Sometimes he puts on the straps, or sometimes when he's scouting college linemen, he is going up against them in the drill to test how it actually feels, and he embarrassingly comes and ruins these little. He makes them seem little like playground kids, and he is NFL head coach, and he took a stiff arm, and he does not fall. Derrick Henry stiff arm. That's who he practices it on. His head coach, Derrick Henry. I've got to find you that, but alongside with those videos of that head coach taking those drills so seriously with his players comes being a player coach, and I think that's definitely leading to the Tennessee Titans' improvement over this season lately in general. Is they want to play for a coach like that, and I think that has a big impact on their success.
Well, coaching definitely does. I mean, you can take a look at any successful team; they have a successful coach behind it, right? Another one I can think of is, like, just crossing sports here, is the New York Islanders. They shouldn't have been where they finished this season, in my opinion, but they have Barry Trotz behind the bench coaching, so they wanted to play for him, and they were able to make the conference finals, right? And they were, they got in the playoffs in that expanded format. I don't know if they would have done that in a regular season, but just
I can't find those videos right now, but yeah,
coaching really does make a difference.
I agree.
And then another game in the NFL, a note, was the Buccaneers and the Packers.
Oh
This
man,
one was going to be a lot closer. Tom Brady walked in and did Tom Brady things. Brady and Gronk connected for the first time in 2 years. And they beat the Packers 38-10.
easily.
I think this is a one-off for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers he's a good QB. I just don't think it was their weekend. I wouldn't look.
I agree. Honestly, man, as someone who listens, yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, before the podcast even started, we mentioned like listening to ESPN Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. They talk big about how like early regular season games are do or die, and how almost Aaron Rodgers' career and Tom Brady's career were dependent on Week 6. You know what I mean? It's kind of blown out of proportion. If a loss is a loss right now,
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is an amazing quarterback. I actually didn't expect this score, though.
No, I thought it'd be a lot closer. I mean, I didn't know what to expect from the Bucs, to be honest, because they've been they have wins, but I don't think they've beaten the strongest teams. They've been playing 500 and sub 500 teams, and their first real test was against the Packers. So,
And Gronk, and getting him going and involved is pretty serious
yeah, I mean,
to their success as well, right? And who knows how.
Connect on a TD. Maybe they'll get rolling now. I don't really know what to expect out of this Bucs team. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make a run to the Super Bowl. I think we're looking at. I don't know who we're. It's such a weird season in the NFL. We're seeing scores I didn't expect. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks showing their potential this year. I think we can look at it, especially the biggest example would be over to Buffalo with Josh Allen, just how he's exploded this season. They had
Oh my
a rough
goodness,
game
man.
last week against the Titans, but
So excited for tonight.
yeah, that's the one game. They kick off. I didn't realize they start at 5, not 7. So
You're kidding.
yeah, they start at 5. So we got
It'll be in the background of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe not.
it'll be Bill.
Maybe not.
Chiefs. The Chiefs recently signed Le'Veon Bell after he was rumored to be going to the Bills. So I was pretty upset about that because
Wow, I didn't even know that the rumor was the Bills either.
yeah, it was down to the Bills and the Chiefs, and I guess he took the. I mean, I think he made
Easy
the right
one.
decision. You go to the team that's most recently won the Super Bowl, got a superstar QB, and Patrick Mahomes. But that's a dangerous looking team now, man. The Chiefs, and I don't know how much of a chance the Bills stand tonight.
Someone said that this signing was like Thanos getting the last Gauntlet Stone, or the last Infinity Stone for their Gauntlet, actually.
You know,
But they already won a Super Bowl, right?
yeah. Sometimes you get these super teams in together, and it doesn't work out like you thought.
Sometimes something doesn't happen. Sometimes one injury can be just as devastating as 5 injuries to one player.
Right, but you know, Le'Veon Bell's a great player. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. I think they're going to connect pretty well. The Bills tonight, if they stand a chance, they have got to clean up their defense. Last week, it was like walking through a wall of butter. I mean, Josh Allen was getting attacked left and right. It was brutal. I just hope they can clean it up tonight, and they might stand a chance. The Chiefs are favored by 5.5 points. I think that's a little generous. I think you're looking at maybe like a 10-point game, is what I was thinking.
Actually, Josh, you know what? I got a question for you. Talking about 5.5 points, as someone who's not experienced in betting and pro line, for example, in football, how does the ratings work in betting? And what is a good way to analyze that for someone to try to make some money if they want to start betting on games? And what does the 5 plus 5 mean compared to a different number?
You gotta have a little bit of knowledge on football and like there's 2 types of bets. There's a money line and there's the pro line or the score line or what you want to call it. So money line is straight up winner. It doesn't matter the score. So if I was betting on Bills Chiefs tonight and I took Bills on money line and they won by 1 point, I would get that money anyway. But if say a team is favored by, so let's use that example, the Chiefs are favored by 5.5 tonight. If I bet on the Bills and the Bills lost, but they lost by a field goal, so only 3 points, I'd still win the bet because I had a 5.5 point handicap. So that's how you can look at it as a handicap, right? So you're kind of giving another team a head start. So
The odds makers.
the odds maker are like, I don't get to decide that. There are some
Right.
sites where you can pick you can pick your own handicap, but Yeah, it's just the odds makers in Vegas that do it, and the lines are constantly changing depending on
Yeah, man. That's good.
what it is.
Sometimes the average viewer, sports fan in general, not necessarily NFL, sees these on the bar across TSN or the bar across ESPN the day before, and it shows. You think you can take a prediction and you can expect who to win, but you don't really understand what the numbers and where they come from and why they are what they are. So I think it's really important to sometimes just to an average fan to understand is easy.
Right. You gotta look at like some games. It's a bit, especially in college sports, you see spreads of like, and it's also to draw interest to games, right? Like if there's a game going on and I have absolutely no interest in the two teams, but I throw $50 down on a team, and it comes down to
Make some money on a Monday night.
it comes down to a touchdown. I'm watching that game with a full interest.
You can make some money with your feet up.
Yeah, exactly. And I had my worst betting story is I was watching a Leafs Canes. This was the David Aries game, and I think at the time they were down.
Dude, I think I remember this. I think we were talking as this happened.
When he came in, they were down by like 4. I think they were down by 4 goals or something. And so I quickly logged in onto the website to what I was I bet on, and they offer live betting. So I bet for the Leafs to win the game, and it was, I think if I put 50 down, I would have won like 10 grand. So I was like, oh, this is a fucking lock. Like I'm gonna be so rich off this bet. And this frickin' Zamboni driver screws me out of that money because he decided to stand on his head. I don't know if he stood on his head or if the Leafs just couldn't score on a beer league goaltender, but that's why, like, I was like, oh, jeez, like, you just never know with these bets. I mean, I had a period and a half to score 4 goals on a beer league goaltender, and these Leafs couldn't do it, so been a little salty about that since then. Haven't done a live bet since.
Can't forget that as a Leafs fan, man.
What's worse, that or Game 7 in 2014?
Probably not even getting into the playoffs this year, man, and we went to the bubble.
Option C.
Right.
But,
what else to choose from?
Yeah, just wrapping up on the NFL, there are actually 2 Monday night games this week. The other one is Cardinals-Cowboys. I'm taking the Cardinals in this one. I mean, Cowboys are 2-3, Cardinals are 3-2.
No Dak.
Cowboys haven't looked very good. No Dak. I don't know what the line is on this game, actually. Actually, no, I do. I wrote it down.
+1.
It's only +1, so it could be a close game. So that could be a game where you throw some money on maybe Arizona. Maybe you throw.
How about Kyler Murray could come out, have a little bit of a breakthrough.
But that's a game where at like 1 point you just take the money line. You don't worry about the score because that's 1 point whatever. But that'll be interesting. But yeah, I like that the NFL has staggered these games, right? Because we have Bills Chiefs kicking off at 5, and then this game's at 8.
That's perfect, right? Yeah.
I wish other sports leagues would take note of that. I hate watching a hockey game and then you get halfway through it, and then the other one's starting, so now you got to do split screen because they don't know how to do a schedule.
Brutal.
That's basic sports management.
That's where these guys come from.
Exactly. Not Humber. That would never happen to a Humber student. So yeah, that's the wrap up on the NFL. Not a lot happened, like big stories this weekend. Cam Newton had a nice outfit, but apart from that, nothing of note stood out to me.
Yeah, we'll have to start adding some outfit pictures onto our Instagram to show off what we find.
Going again. Outfit Mondays or something.
Dude.
Yeah, but it should be an interesting Monday night. I'm hoping for a Bills win, but I'm not too optimistic about it. But we'll see. And then, big game between the Cardinals and Cowboys. See if the Cowboys can pull ahead, but like I said, they don't have Dak Prescott, so we'll see on that one too.
All right, man. Here we go. Let's transition right into the NHL.
All right.
You started off the NFL, so let me start off this time. NHL. Josh Egan, Orion influencer, podcast producer himself, got a lot of traction on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
You want to talk to us about what that was? Was it your biggest breakthrough of a tweet lately, or no?
It's one of my top 2. I had one in 2016 when the Leafs were messing.
You know what? We might have to take a screenshot after this podcast and put it on Instagram just to show the viewers what we're talking about for everyone that doesn't follow Josh Egan or Coach Josh on Twitter.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the video.
We'll put a little screenshot of what Josh said of the recent Toronto Maple Leafs. Actually, it wasn't the Maple Leafs. Very, very, yeah. He spoke without speaking, if you were to say.
Shit, I just brought up a very good point. So, if anyone's wondering what happened, the Marlies, not even the Leafs, the Marlies signed forward Scott Sabourin just to an AHL deal, so a one-way deal. So he can still be called up. He would just still make the same amount of money. And so, if anybody remembers from the preseason last year, Sabourin went after Matthews, and Matthews gave him the old name.
Who are you?
Who are you? All I did was respond to that tweet with that GIF. And let me tell you, I have never had so many Sens fans reach out to me to tell me how little I know about hockey. And a couple death threats, but I don't expect anything less from Sens fans because it's the most irrelevant franchise in the NHL. But yeah, that's all I tweeted. And that Barry guy underneath, that was actually pretty good. That made me laugh, but I couldn't give him the benefit of the doubt. But it kind of took off a little bit.
345, that's a lot of likes.
And I didn't even say anything. And that signing has absolutely no impact on anything.
Nothing to do with the Leafs.
Nothing.
It's their farm team.
Play in a preseason game.
That's, although that is funny, that is still very relevant. And as a Leafs fan, who is he is still the question in the air.
Exactly. He's a guy.
Right?
But I just found it funny that it reinforces the point that Leafs fans live in every other fan base's head rent-free. It is always
Speaking of Leafs,
about the Leafs.
We will keep it local again. And although there are many NHL free signings lately, how do you want to talk about the newest acquisitions for the Maple Leafs? We can go off of Bogosian or Thornton. We can even go off of getting rid of Kapanen, and we can go with getting the VC. And Wayne Simmons is finally coming back here. Not back here, but he's from Canada at least. So,
I think we start at the beginning and go with Kapanen because we got rid of him, and that.
And now they're thinking of putting him.
I saw that move coming. Not on that day. I thought they would wait until the end.
It was quick, wasn't it? Very quick, man.
It was very quick. Dubas didn't wait around. Jim Rutherford didn't wait around. Jim Rutherford.
Like I said, the Leafs didn't even make the actual playoffs, man.
He's just been over in Pittsburgh. That guy has not held back. He's been ruthless with what he's been doing, and it'll be interesting to see where the Penguins end up. But back to the Leafs.
The method.
It freed up enough cap space to make these signings. So they brought in Simmons, they brought in Bogosian, they brought in
Thornton.
Brody, they brought in Joe Thornton.
Very cheap deals actually for some of those guys too.
Yeah, I think it was. I saw it.
Got $700K on Joe Thornton.
It takes up the same amount of cap space as Kapanen and Johnson did, and I'll take that every day of the week. And
where'd Johnson go? The Devils?
Yeah, he went to the Devils for like a
right.
So they're just shedding cap space, and that's what you got to do, right? Like, if it's not working, it's not working.
A fifth rounder? Damn.
Fifth rounder. Well, you look at it like this: the Leafs. The amount of goals they scored, Kapanen and Johnson accounted for like 6% of them. Like, they're not going to be missed. I don't think they are anyway. And then, bringing in Thornton, bringing in Simmons, bringing in Bogosian, bringing in Brody. You got Lettinen coming over from the KHL. It's going to give this team a different look. And while on paper they might not look like a better team, you got to look at it like this. Would you rather have Kapanen over any of these guys? Yeah, probably. Would you rather have Johnson over any of these guys? Yeah, probably, with the exception of TJ Brody. But would you rather
all right, let me ask you
these new free agent signings, or would you rather have Kapanen and Johnson? And if you look at it as a whole, which is what you should, you're going to take the new free agent signings.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at potential starting lineups for the Leafs and tell me what you think. I've got a couple people who've given me some of their input on what they think, and they have a good amount of a good amount of industry knowledge, let's say, without telling you what their job is or anything. He was telling me he thought Marner, Matthews, Hyman, Nylander, Tavares, VC. There, let me finish, and then let me tell you what I told him. The second line, Nylander, Tavares, Vesey. Third line, Mikheyev, Thornton, Simmons, then Spezza, Engvall, or Robertson and Kerfoot. On defense, Riley with Brody, Muzzin with Hall, Lettinen with Bogosian, or Sandin and Dermott. So I instantly told him I did not think VC was mature enough, experienced enough, skilled enough yet to be on the second line.
Right.
I would rather like to see Simmons with Nylander and Tavares. I think Tavares and Simmons have like some connections leading back to when they were a lot younger and growing up because they're from the same area. But I could be completely wrong. But I do believe that Simmons could mesh with Tavares as an experienced player and someone who's really determined to win a cup late in their career, more than Vesey could, as he's still someone who's trying to search for his identity in the league, and he's also given almost a second chance in his professional NHL career, if we're to be honest, right? Like, he was pretty star-studded. He was pretty covenant of a free signing, right? Free agent. Didn't even go into the draft. He got to choose where he played, and he chose the Rangers. And he also had the choice to choose the Maple Leafs, and now he's coming back on a pretty bare minimum.
Yeah.
So I think if he starts lower in the lineup, he can earn something, and that's more of a telltale sign to Leafs fans as you want to see someone who's new earn their stay.
Right.
Putting third line, maybe Vesey and Mikheyev would be interesting as a big vet.
See, I think you.
What's that?
From what I see, I would go Matthews, Hyman, Nylander, and keep that together, and then your top six doesn't go unchanged. You go Tavares, Mikheyev, Marner, then that rounds out your top six. When you get into the bottom six, it gets a little more interesting. I don't know if Robertson makes this team with all the signings, but I have him on my roster, so I have Robertson, Kerfoot, and Simmons, and then
you don't think he comes in because he's cheap?
I don't know. I think I'm not 100% sure yet. I know
he's still young, but I mean they can use him.
I think it really depends, what other leagues he could go to. If the OHL and the AHL are playing, he might go there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And then my fourth line is Thornton, VC, and Spezza. Thornton's pass share in NHL last year was off the charts, and VC's pass. He's not a pass first guy; he's a shoot first guy. So Thornton and VC could actually be dangerous. And then Spezza
I like that.
Just rounds it out. Again, I don't know if Thornton and Spezza will play if it's an 82-game season, 82 games, but I don't know. And then my defense pairings, I go Riley, Brody, Muzzin, Bogosian, Lettinen, Dermott. I don't have Hall on my lineup. I just have him as the rotating defenseman. And then obviously,
I don't like his play.
But I think, especially with the format, the NHL coming up, they're probably going to get expanded rosters, and I think Douglas knows.
Let's talk more about that, man. Tell me more about the expanded, and not necessarily expanded, but the new format for the season, and then how next season is going to shape up, if you're not already aware.
Well, they don't have a confirmed one yet, but the most popular, I guess we'll call it a theory, is the divisions are going to be, I guess, realigned. So they'll have 3 divisions in the States, obviously East, Central, and West, so then you'll just split the states like this, and then that'll be your division. But the most important one of note would be Canada would be its own division. So we'd have a 7-team division up here consisting of all 7 Canadian teams. This is good and bad because it would be highly entertaining, but bad because there are some really good Canadian teams, and if it stays like that all season, which it might not, 3 of those teams won't make the playoffs. So you're looking at Toronto competing with Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary. There's some pretty good teams up here. Even Montreal improved. I think the Sens are going to steal some points from people this year. I don't know, an all-Canadian division would be entertaining, but it'd be very competitive. And I think it'd be really good for hockey.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point, man. To that point, with the Senators and the Habs do have a lot to prove, I think, coming off of a very good last season. They're their potential for put in a lock position for next year's playoffs is very close for me. But as you said, I also can see them missing out. I can still easily see the Senators missing out, and then that last one is going to be the nail biter, right?
Yeah. Like the Leafs would get in. They're in the top 4 best teams in Canada. I just think it'd be very competitive, and
you'd hope that their new signings are going to bring.
Yeah, for sure. And like the way I look at it is, if we do have a Canadian division, it's not going to last all season. It'll probably be the first half. Like I think, in all realisticness, we're looking at a 56 to 60 game season over 3 or 4 months. So it'd be a compressed schedule, less travel. And then in the second half of the season, you open it up to allow travel over to the States. But again, that's not up to the NHL. That's up to the...
Probably do a couple bubbles, maybe. Again,
might have to do that.
Divisional bubbles, honestly.
Or do what the MLS has done. Like TFC, they're playing in Connecticut right now. That's their home. And they just have to deal with it. I don't know if the NHL would want that, or if the NHLPA would go for it. If it was for, like, if you've got 20 games left and you could promise them you're out of here in a month and a half, you might be able to sell it and just say, like, look, this is just what you have to do if you want to get a season done. But the players, like, from what we've heard, they didn't have a good experience in that bubble, so I don't know if they want to go back into the bubble, or a bubble of some form. Another one I've heard is that they're going to do divisional bubble, or I guess, like, travel hubs. So you would travel for 2 weeks within a bubble, and then you would come home and get a week off, and then you would go and travel again for 2 weeks within a bubble. So there's a lot of options out there. I really think they're waiting for more clarity on the border restrictions, though.
That's what I mean. I think these so-called traveling bubbles, we'll call them, will be the most effective solution. Is probably setting up divisional bubbles every so often, and then having those, and then having your 3 to 5 to 7 day quarantines, and then playing, and then going to a different division or different country, for example, and then a month and a month and a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, we could see a hybrid. We could see the first half of the season just be a complete mess, and then the second half just be equal a mess. And we can speculate all we want. At the end of the day, we don't get the final say. It's going to be whoever makes that decision at the NHL, the NHLPA, in conjunction with governments and stuff. They're going to get it figured out. And I think they will. It just feels weird that this time of year, we're in October, this would be prime hockey season right now, and we just don't have it. We just don't, it feels weird.
Super weird.
Yeah. Let's talk some NBA. You want to take a lead on this one? You're more knowledgeable of that.
All right, my favorite NBA. All right, so, man, there's so much to talk about as in NBA, especially because this is our first podcast. This is the first podcast. It's been a week and a day since the Lakers won the championship.
Yep.
In the bubble. Actually, as someone who is definitely aware of the bubble, the NBA bubble, of course, we're talking about down in Orlando, Florida, I want to know what your thoughts were on that as a sports fan, what your thoughts were before the idea, and then what your thoughts were after, considering 0 cases for almost the whole time there in the bubble.
Well, it worked. These players were... they almost left, right, with the whole Black Lives Matter issue as well, but they had an idea, and when I first heard it, I thought, man, if they can pull this idea off, it's going to be one of the greatest things that...
I was super hesitant, man. I was super hesitant. A lot of people I know were, too.
Yeah, and once they got it all together, when the idea was first announced, I didn't know it would be at Disney World, and I thought that was a great idea. Such a big place for these NBA...
Yeah, the biggest thing about it being in Disney World was the fact that Florida at the time was the highest in all of USA and among cases of COVID-19, and then that's where they decided to set up shop. And I think that is a huge testament as to considering how well it worked, where they did it, and how they went about it. And I watched a lot of videos on how they produced it, and every player had to wear a wristband on their that was connected to an app on their phone that they had to complete every morning about their symptoms and temperature. They had to report it, and then everywhere you went on the campus in the NBA bubble, you had to scan your wrist on an entrance pass, and if that entrance pass scanned green, you got to enter, and if it didn't, you had to go red. You had to go and do the app for the day. So I saw how that worked firsthand on a couple of NBA players' blogs. Vlogs rather on YouTube. I think JaVale McGee's, you can find that out on one, and there's a bunch of other ones that you guys can go listen to and watch rather, where they show how the bubble works and how their processes of the everyday routines went, and that included taking their temperature as soon as they woke up, multiple times throughout the day, and reporting their symptoms and if they felt anything. And so that repetitiveness, and it had testing every day, nose and mouth every day. So that way of doing it on top of the way with the wristbands, I believe, super important to be innovative these days. And that was a big example of Adam Silver actually, yet again, bringing us basketball, something to watch.
Yeah, and I think both leagues that did the bubble should be giving credit for pulling it off. I know the NHL's one had externally they didn't say that they had any blips, but internally the players were saying like we had nothing to do. It felt like Groundhog Day. We would wake up, work out, eat breakfast, wait in the hotel room, go play hockey. I think the NBA bubble definitely had a lot more for the players to do. Like, there were videos of
fishing.
Believe they had access to the park as well, and
golf courses.
Yeah, exactly. And back to the NBA bubble, like before it kicked off, the MLS had their MLS is Back tournament in around the same place, and a couple of their games were postponed because of positive COVID cases, even though they were in a bubble, and 2 teams actually withdrew because half their team had COVID. So, and I think this was like 2 or 3 weeks before the NBA was supposed to go for their bubble into the bubble.
Huge credit to the NBA.
And I thought, man, like if the MLS is already in a bubble and they can't pull this off, how's the NBA gonna do it? Because it's just the nature of basketball players, man. Like they want to do what they want when they want to do it. So I was expecting, and some players did leave the bubble to go get wings at a strip club or whatever. But apart from that, I think it was all good.
Lemon pepper Lou. Let's not get it twisted.
They pulled it off, and credit to them for that. I don't think the product suffered as much as we thought it would. The basketball was still good from what I saw. They did a really
good job. I wish you were as interested, not to say that you aren't as educated, but in basketball as me, because we could go on for hours about how I believe that a lot of people in the NBA world believe there should be an asterisk beside this championship, right? And if anything I've heard and I believe in, there should be an asterisk for exactly how more competitive, difficult it was to win, considering obviously people testament the fans not being there as something that is positive and helps players.
Yeah.
But the quietness, being away from their family for what was 2 months or 3 months before they were allowed to come, and then we had 2 players go out and speak on, and Danny Green, Paul George was one of them, about how the bubble affected his mental health and how he felt really dark and upset and alone. And so there's a lot more about that too, and especially how the NHL, you talk about the inside and the outside and what people say it went and how it actually went. The NBA bubble should not have an asterisk at all, but if it does, it's for exactly the opposite of what some people say it is, and that's because it was very challenging. And for the teams that had to stay there and stick it out for that long, that's why they won. And to go right into that, and I know for anyone who is a basketball rumor enthusiast, hopefully they've been keeping up lately, because I have. The champion Lakers already in rumor talks to increase their roster. 2 things. Derrick Rose, very recently. But the first thing I want to mention is Chris Paul. So CP3 to the Lakers has been a rumor since maybe the day after they won. And I've been doing some research into this, and I've been listening to Bleacher Report has a couple articles, and they have a podcast about how a Chris Paul trade. So Chris Paul, obviously, for the average listener, is a seasoned veteran in the NBA and an all-star, and will go down as a very good Hall of Famer, but has not ever won a ring. and he is coming off of a rather comeback season in Oklahoma City with the Thunder after making the playoffs and completely changing the odds that team had at the beginning of the year to make the playoffs as to what they did or even compete was amazing. And that is half the reason why Chris Paul has this refound sense of relevancy, if you were to put it that way, into the NBA world, which is going to attract him to the Lakers here because he is friends with LeBron James. However, if you're a Lakers fan, the space that must be allowed for Chris Paul to come in is going to be $33 million. So as a Lakers GM, this means you're getting rid of Danny Green at $15 million, Avery Bradley at $5, JaVale McGee at $4, Kyle Kuzma at $3, Quinn Cook at $3, Alex Caruso, and a pick. So you're giving up 5 rotational players here just to hear Chris Paul come and be on the Lakers, which means you're going to be dragging out sources from a lot of cheap places maybe. But does this get it done? It's just a rumor. However, it's a lot to give up right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe. And even if you don't understand that, you can understand the value in a lot of these players.
I mean, I think all you got to do is look at the Clippers and what they gave up for Paul George.
You don't want to make a similar mistake, do you?
And I don't know if that worked out well for them.
So
I don't think it did from what I've seen in the stories that have come out afterwards about how the team is...
Oh, man, brutal. That also led to the firing of Doc Rivers, which led to the recent hiring of Tyronn Lue. Tyronn has got a 5-year deal with the Clippers, and he's won a championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers back in 2016, I believe. So that's the experience he brings. He's been the assistant coach alongside Doc that past year with the LA Clippers anyway. But with Doc going to the Philadelphia 76ers, it could be a make or break deal here for the Clippers in terms of how they would get Kawhi, because 5 years is a pretty guarantee for Tyronn, and it's Kawhi who has the option at the end of his next season to whether he wants to play or ask for a trade, which is what they're depending on. So their next season is huge, not for their coaching, but for the depth and the relevancy of their team, I believe. And they don't have any future. Not to say they don't have any future, but what they gave up for Paul George limits their future conditions for 5 to plus 10.
I mean, how much of a, that's Kawhi's team from the stories that I've heard. It was just, I think The Athletic had the article and they kind of buried the lead on it, but they were saying he was missing flights, being late to flights with the team.
Being late to flights.
Just not being a professional, and I don't know if that was happening here in Toronto. I don't believe it was. But
he had a lot to prove in Toronto, and it's almost like he got way too comfortable when he got home.
Right, and so my question is, how much of a role did he have in hiring this head coach? Is this
right
he wants, or is this?
Yeah, I totally believe that. Their owner, his name's Steve Ballmer. He's one of the most. He's actually one of the most. He's one of the richest owners in the NBA, and
job.
Right. He has a method, but he's building a new arena, and he's trying to create this program that is probably revolved around Kawhi Leonard. Considering if he was to leave, what else would it be revolved around again? So, Steve Ballmer is someone I believe who is to have a conversation with Kawhi Leonard about that. Obviously, I'm very blind to what is probably happening. I think as a player in the NBA, you have a say as to if you wanted Tyronn Lue or someone new to come in from a whole different organization overall, or you wanted that internal hiring and to be Kawhi Leonard at the level he is and what he's paid for to play basketball for that team.
Yeah.
I believe if he didn't want someone there, he would make it known. I'm sure he wants to prolong his stay in California with his family, although he is on this opting out season. Oh. However, if the coach wasn't what he wanted. He might not seem like he talks, but he was talking. He's probably talking.
I mean, I think you and I see Steve Ballmer two very different ways, because I don't think he really knows what he's doing, because he's definitely a super fan who has all this money, and he bought the Clippers for probably pennies on the dollar for what he has. So now he's just,
I like this.
He's like,
yeah, I like that you said this.
He just wants, it's his hobby, right? Like, to him, it's a real.
He probably wants quick success, eh?
Yeah, it's a fantasy team to him. So he saw it didn't work, and he's like, okay, well, let's get rid of the coach and bring in this other guy. It's going to cost me whatever it cost him, but I don't care. I'm going to make that back tomorrow morning. Like, he has so much money, he doesn't know what to do with it. And I got that impression from him over time, but I think the thing that really drilled it on the head for that is when he had that introductory press conference last season with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and he's standing.
He got pretty goofy.
Well, he's standing on stage clapping like a walrus, screaming "pretty cool, pretty damn cool." And Kawhi was looking at him like, "What the hell am I doing?" Like, I think he lost him there. Maybe I'm totally offside on this, but
you know what? I'm very glad that you brought this point across, to be honest with you, because I was very blind to that, and I do think that Steve Ballmer had a lot of interest and maybe good at heart for the Clippers. However, in terms of his knowledge as a professional basketball enthusiast, maybe all the reasoning of him helping assist get rid of all of his future does actually damper what I thought, because he is looking for quick success, but there was not much evidence of success in Paul George to begin with.
No.
But the thing was, Kawhi was not coming without it.
Right, and what a smart, I guess.
And Kawhi was coming off of and think of Kawhi Leonard as a free agent coming off of the best season with the Toronto Raptors in recent history.
Yeah, and
what are you gonna do? So
Kawhi wanted to come home. He came home to the Clippers, but he wanted Paul George. I'm sure he told the Raptors the same thing, and Masai was like, "No, we're not giving up our future for."
There was, I believe that Russell Westbrook was also somehow on his way to Toronto for something, and there was a big deal about Masai not letting go of Pascal and a couple other picks, which is the only reason Toronto is probably going to be a core team that people are attracted to over the next couple of years.
Right,
and that is the difference. That is the difference, I believe. Sorry, this is my real point. That is the difference between Masai and Steve Ballmer, is the strength in their own team and the roots grounded in the Clippers and the Raptors versus external, cheap, or overrated sources such as Paul George, PG 13%.
That just goes to show, like, you got a super fan running the team over there.
And I used to wear Paul George shoes. Sorry, though. He's kind of trash. He hit the side of the backboard, man. I'm out here making some bold takes. I burned his shoes, actually.
Oh,
I was burning them out. But this is funny. I have a shoe store in my hometown, too. I might have sent it to you. They're called, I'm not going to actually name it right now, but if you know them in my hometown, they the day after they got eliminated and Paul George hit the side of the backboard with a wide open three, they put up one of his famous PlayStation Paul George 2 shoes or something like that. Yeah. And they said, who wants these for free? We're just going to throw them in the trash around the area, or hide and seek around the area. And, they're actually like a $250 shoe. So all of his actual revenue and his popularity, to me, I don't really care for him anymore, and I was super excited about him. He has to have an extra all-star season for me to ever consider him someone I can rely on. Kawhi Leonard needed someone better. He needed the Raptors.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just think, like...
Shout out to my mom. I know she's watching, and she believes that Kawhi should have stayed with the Raptors.
Well, he definitely should have, but yeah, I saw the asks was a lot, but that's in the past, and we're looking...
Hurts our heart.
The future holds for us a new movie coming out, Space Jam 2, with LeBron James.
All right, yes. Very glad you mentioned this.
The trailer hasn't come out, but the plot has leaked.
Let me read this here. Let me read this word for word, if you don't mind, off of TSN Instagram here. The reported plot for LeBron James' sequel to Space Jam has surfaced. Okay. During a trip to the Warner Bros. Studio, NBA superstar LeBron James and his son accidentally get trapped in a world that contains all of Warner Bros. Stories and characters under the control of a malfunctioning, all-powerful force named Algae, played by Don Cheadle. Sounds very familiar. I'm not sure who Don Cheadle is by the face right now, but I will when I recognize it. I will recognize it when I see it, rather. The synopsis reads, in quote, with the help of Bug Bunny, LeBron must navigate through a never-before-imagined world filled with iconic movie scenes and characters as they reassembled the Looney Tunes to rescue his lost son. Now, to get back home, LeBron and the Tunes have to unravel Algae's mysterious plan and win an epic basketball game against digital gamified super versions of the NBA and WNBA's biggest stars of the entire world watches. I mean, to start off, before you even get out of any of your thoughts, this is a leak. It is reported. I do believe that it came up by TSN, and I do believe it will be confirmed very soon that it is, and it'll be followed by a trailer. However, as a 20-year-old basketball fan, I am excited. And to say that this is a Looney Tunes for all ages, I think, is very appropriate.
Well, you gotta look at Space Jam 1. That hit all ages.
You can hit the people who watched that when they were our age, you can hit them again as a sequel, and you can hit the young ones with the new characters, yep. LeBron James's son. So,
right. Is his son going to be in the movie, or is it just going to be a different actor? Do you know?
I hope. You know what? It'd have to be him, or else I'm not buying it. If it's LeBron's in it, his son's got to be in it, right? Like, what? His son's just as good of a basketball player at his age than anyone his age. So I would hope it. I mean, LeBron James just runs the world right now, man.
I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on a Space Jam 2 leak, but just my initial, as soon as I heard about Space Jam 2, I thought, this is gonna be something, and then they cast LeBron James in it. I'm like, they might, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a worldwide phenomenon for sure. I don't know what the quality is gonna be like. Like the first one was really good. I enjoyed it. I still do. I think it was creative. It was entertaining. There's so many iconic moments coming from that movie, like especially with the magic juice, and it was just water. But Space Jam 2. I can't wait to see the trailer just to see what we're gonna look like. I mean, especially with updated technologies now, we're gonna be able to get some good animations and look at how we're.
Speaking of updated technology, banging trash cans is not a good example of that. This is how the Astros won one of their World Series. How are we going to talk about their run now coming to an end, Josh? You want to start that off for us?
All right, I got a lot to say on the Astros. When I first read this story, I didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way they could pull that off. And then the facts came out, players came forward, and they were given immunity because they wanted to get to the bottom of this. None of the players were penalized. It was all the GMs and the coaches and all that, which I think is disgusting. I think you gotta, and I don't think enough has been taken to this about how many careers they actually ruined. They were banging trash cans against the Jays one game when they were up 10-1, and I can't remember the pitcher's name who was in this game, but he was sent down to the minors after that, and then he hasn't come back up since because he allowed like 7 home runs against the Astros. Imagine going up to bat and knowing what pitch is coming, right? Like, wouldn't we all want that?
I know, I'm super embarrassed that they didn't get their championship revoked. That's all I have to say.
It's the equivalent of going into a test and saying, okay, it's either going to be A or B.
You know what? Like,
it's gross. And
it is the equivalent of having a hula hoop with net on one side of the basketball court and normal net on the other, I would say.
But on the other side, this is going to sound controversial, I wanted them to win the World Series this year because it would have been maximum mayhem. I think that would have been just phenomenal. Twitter would have exploded. It would have been great, especially if they
And
beat the
as
Dodgers.
and as someone who isn't ride or die for the MLB,
No.
storylines are great. And as a Twitter average consumer, the Astros Shame Tour is really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The people who hate on the Astros are very loud and expressive about it. I have nothing to say other than they banged garbage cans to win, and they cheated. Now we have the Dodgers and Tampa Bay Rays, who have had so much have had not very good, rather, seasons in the past couple 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, tell me about it. How are they here?
Circumstance, I think. Shortened season. They found a little bit of a hot streak in the regular season. It was 60 games. Expanded playoffs. I mean, they would have made it anyway in a regular MLB season. Their pitching was good. Their defense was phenomenal. They were jumping all over the field in the playoffs, just to jumping into the crowd to catch balls. Their batters caught fire when they needed to. And honestly, I think they just got like a little bit of a wave to get into the finals. I don't think they stand much of a chance against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a powerhouse in baseball, but I do think we're going to see 5 or 6 really entertaining games of baseball. And at the end of it, I could be proven wrong, and the Rays could pull the upset and win. I just think that it's good for baseball that we have the Rays in the championship, because that's not the biggest market. They struggle to sell out crowds and all that, and I think to be able to have them showcased on, it's going to be primetime TV. LA is going to be playing, which is one of the biggest baseball markets in the world. To show off, finally, should be able to show off their product of what they do with what I believe is the lowest cap space in baseball. It's going to be an entertaining matchup. I believe that kicks off tomorrow, so it's going to be. I'll be watching just to see how it goes off. Like, I don't have too many thoughts on it right now. I just want to watch the first game and see where we go from there. Do you know if they're letting? They were talking about letting crowds in. Are they doing that now for the final?
That looked like it on the highlights, did it not?
I don't know.
I saw some fans. I thought I saw some fans.
Just for the World Series, they were letting fans in.
You know what? The MLB is different, so.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's gonna be good. We'll see what happens. We'll get more into that on our next episode, because it's gonna be great matchup. Speaking of baseball, I don't know if you pay much attention to it. I don't really. But just to loop back to the Astros, you said it was their shame tour. I don't think this was their shame tour. This was the warm.
Twitter said there was the same tour. Let's have this quoted, but
just wait till fans are in the crowd. You just wait. They are going to be booed at every at-bat. It's going to be a shit show. Stuff's going to be thrown. Imagine a game where they're in LA with fans. I don't know. It's going to be great.
Wow, bro. Astros 2020 Astros Shame Tour. 300,000 followers. Look at this.
Jeez.
People on it has made a page, 2020 Astros Shame Tour, 300K, and they follow 755. The score follows them.
And it's going to be a lot worse next year when the crowd is there.
Let me see if I can find something funny.
But yeah, World Series coming up, gonna be good. And
all right,
good on the MLB for getting it finished, because there was a little bit there.
Super controversial. I do remember that.
I mean,
that was
NFL
super controversial.
Same thing right now too.
NFL is having such a struggle with COVID, man.
Yeah. But,
let's swing that, eh? Let's swing that right into coronavirus. Why don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long you want to spend on it, but just the impact.
It's at the point of it as where it is right now. We're 6+ or whatever it is, since it impacted the NBA and the whole sports world. We don't have to spend too much time on it, but a couple key points has definitely got to cross your mind. No, Josh?
Yeah, I just think it's shown the resilience of these sports leagues, especially to be able to continue with their product through through these circumstances. A lot of the leagues postponed. I felt bad for some of the leagues, though, like especially the XFL.
CFL.
CFL, the XFL, they, not so much the CFL, they will continue. But
They're so poor, man. They're so poor. CFL is so poor.
the XFL was flying. Like, they were in week 5, they were getting viewers, nothing compared to the NFL, but it was an entertainment.
The Vince McMahon XFL?
The Vince McMahon XFL, which is now owned by The Rock, and I was enjoying it. I thought it was fun. And
Don't you love that?
But
what a freaking story right there, man.
But it, they'll be back, and I just feel bad for some of these sports leagues.
What about I think I heard a rumor about The Rock. He might try to play.
Wouldn't surprise me.
All right.
But
Let me read you this, Josh. Let me read you this recent thing from TSN here. It's in relation to I guess it's from the Supporters Shield Foundation, and it says, "We are currently holding meetings with the supporter group representatives about the original decision in light of information and feedback we have received. A public update will be coming." And this is about the Supporter Shield being awarded this. I'm not too sure on how that works.
Supporters Shield goes to the best team in MLS, regular season. TFC are on track to win it. They're top of the table with 4 regular season games left, and pretty much the Supporters Shield is owned by a private group. I don't know if it's owned, but the decisions around it are made. And they recently decided not to give it out this year because they said it was an unusual circumstance for them to give it out.
Okay, so you know what? That's clarification that it was privately owned trophy in a different league.
No, it's not. I don't think it's privately owned, but they have a committee around it. It's kind of like, I don't think any other sports league has it. It would be like if the Stanley Cup had a committee and they just said, we don't actually want to give it out this year.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, I didn't understand too much clarification regarding that.
And I don't understand why they don't want to give it out, because the season's being played, games are being played. There's nothing. The only circumstance is, it's affecting the Canadian teams. They have to play away home games in a different field. Like TFC is playing out of Connecticut. So, and the players are saying they're extremely disappointed by this decision. Greg Vanney, the head coach, has said it's a childish decision made by people who don't know football or soccer. But I don't agree with it either. Like, if you win the trophy, you should get it. And hopefully they reverse the decision. It sounds like they're going to. But I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Yeah, it's a different season. It's more difficult circumstances for these teams. Games were canceled, games were postponed. They had a tournament in the middle of the season for MLS with points counting towards the standings and playoff spots are at stake and all that. They are going to play the playoffs with the MLS Cup on the line. And if all that's still up for grabs, why is the Supporter Shield suddenly being taken off the table? I don't understand that. And in soccer, like the British Premier League, or the EPL and La Liga, all of these leagues, they don't have playoffs. They just play the regular season, and if you finish first, that's your prize. So imagine if the Premier League went, actually, we're not going to give out the cup this year. It's like, okay, then what were we playing for? A lot of these players see the Supporter Shield as like the main goal, right? And then the playoffs are a very North American thing because they want like a conclusion. But in soccer, it's seen as like the regular season is the highest trophy you can win, and it's just over here. I think it's to appease the North American fans is the playoff format, which is the MLS Cup, and to knock.
Very good, actually. Nice take.
If you're not giving out the Supporter Shield, these players might see it as disrespect, which I think it is, because you've worked all season. The regular season is longer than the playoffs by a long margin, especially in soccer. And to be consistent over a long period of time should be rewarded, especially with these circumstances. So I really hope they come to their senses, and the Supporter Shield Committee, or whatever they're called, get their heads out their asses and say, you know what, we are going to give it out because these players deserve it. And that's not just because I'm a TFC fan. Like, I would say this if it was any other team. Right?
Okay, man. Before we take it local here, I have one last thing before I touch on the OCAA that the Humber Hawks are included in. Yep. I want to ask you about Conor McGregor and the UFC and coming back about Poirier. You mentioned this earlier. McGregor has retired, then come back, then retired, then come back, then retired and come back.
He knows how to work an audience. He wants the big money fight. He wants this fight to be at Cowboy Stadium. Is it stupid what he's doing with this retired and all that, and then coming back and saying he wants it at Cowboy Stadium? Yeah. Are people going to buy the fight? Of course. He says he's using this as a stepping stone to get back in the ring because after this he wants to fight Pacquiao. I don't really see the logic there because there's two different types of fighting, unless he's just going to box in the UFC ring and let the other guy kick the shit out of him. But I don't know. It's going to be a good fight. Their first fight was really good. This is going to be the first UFC card of next year, so they're probably going to load it up. There's been no other fights announced, and they don't have a venue yet. So people are saying it's going to be the first fight back where they're going to allow crowds, which is doable if they do it at Cowboy Stadium, because that hosts, I think it's like 68,000 fans, so they can fill that to 20% capacity, and then have people spread out and all that. And the UFC is going to want that because they haven't had fights with gate revenue since March. And if you have McGregor doing that, you're paying big money to have McGregor on the card. Poirier's probably going to want at least 75% of what McGregor's making on that fight. So you got these two big fighters that you're going to big paydays. They're going to need the gate revenue. I think it's going to be a fascinating development. Contracts still haven't been signed, so the fight's not official. And I think that heavily relies on if there's going to be a live crowd or not.
Wrapping it up, man. 4 days ago, the OCAA, and if you're not aware of what the OCAA is, it is the governing body, I believe, of the Ontario College Athletics Association, which the Humber Hawks, which me and Josh are students of, have a endless amount of teams under. And the other day, earlier, they did mention how the first semester of sports was going to be canceled, but 4 days ago, they made an official statement saying that in response to the ongoing COVID-19 global pandemic, the OCAA and its members have made a difficult decision to cancel varsity athletics for the 2021 semester, which is the winter semester, rather, so maybe the fall is okay. But this means that the rest of this, to the end of these exams, final year, no sports, no practices, no traveling, nothing like that of being an athlete. And we're going to try to incorporate as many guests as we can on the show. And as Humber students, I am already aware of a couple people that I have who are on some teams. But if you are out there and you are on a Humber team, and if you're watching this, we are looking, I would love to hear actually some of your input on how you have been training and hoping that you would play, and how this affects your training, or how it affects your love for the sport. But my most relevant question to me is I'm wondering about, these athletes. I don't want to say their mental health, but along with mental health comes self-image, and along with self-image comes what you portray yourself as. And if they portray themselves as those athletes instead of student athletes, maybe right now they're having a hard time not being able to perform in front of their fans, family, and friends, because that is a huge identifying factor, I believe, especially for me. I'm not a college athlete, but I'm a competitive sport athlete, and I believe that it sucks the sports are canceled, but for student athletes, I want to know you guys' opinions on how motivated you guys are to stay in school in general, how motivated you are to stay committed to your sport. I think Josh is just as interested too, right?
Yeah, and I feel bad for these athletes, and it's not just college sports that have been canceled. Youth sports was canceled too. All these, especially around here, we had the GTHL push back their stuff till
everything. I just wanted to mention the OCAA in general,
yeah.
and as a first thing,
as a coach,
the OHL, man,
yeah.
Everything.
WHL has been postponed. The QMJHL is in a tough spot. And on a personal level, I work at a rink, and we work with all these kids and these teams, and we see them come through, and they're just heartbroken that all they can do is practice right now. And they're playing 3-on-3 and all that, and they're saying, it's not just the same. We want to play hockey. We want to get back on the road and travel and all that. And it's not just the 14, 15, 16-year-old players saying this. It's the 7 and 8-year-olds who just want to play hockey, and they can't at the moment. And I really hope we find a way to be able to get them to play safely. I don't want them to go back just to go back. And then, we get an uptick of cases.
It's got to be done right.
It's got to be done right, and we're doing what we can right now, but it's not going to... I don't think this has a clear end in sight. Hopefully we can figure it out. If that means no parents in the stands, players have to wear fish bubbles or whatever, let's get it done. Let's work together and hopefully
Play some hockey.
yeah, let's play not just hockey though, right? Like soccer, lacrosse, football.
Let's do it, man.
Like let's get everybody back on the field, the pitch, the court,
No politics here, man. Let's just do it for the love of the game.
right? And
Let's just do it safely, and let's not worry about profiting money and making things privatized. Let's make it accessible at this time for everyone, because it's a huge deal. Not only sports, but recreation in general. Facilities being open, and as someone who lives in the GTA, we are currently in another second stage of a 28-day lockdown, which also affects people's ability to go to these gyms, go to these open courts, go to these open ice surfaces, go to these soccer fields, and go to these pitches to play soccer, to play baseball outside, and organized league rather. And so it has been 6 months since anything of ordinary behavior has been in sports, and it's never going to be the same. I believe probably for minimum 5, maximum I'd hope 10 years. Hopefully, we'd see the comfortability of people being in the sports and high fiving players and having maximum capacity. But I believe there has to be some huge innovation to really attract a fan to not go to the event, but be interested enough to interact and watch it from their home.
yeah, and it's going to be important to get people back out there, and I don't think.
Oh, you know what? I misplaced my track and where I was leading to. Having these recreational systems open are a huge deal for people to relieve their stress and just going outside and moving. And the whole idea of sports, sorry that I got off track, the whole idea of sports and recreation is to be doing physical activity. And that is the underlying premises of why we love sports, is because we're moving and we're sweating. And we're doing something that we are trying to... It's nothing that we are as serious of in our life or as more relaxed of than we are when we are playing our designated and favorite sport.
Yep.
And we create and we destroy ourselves through that sport with our own
it's a release for people.
Right, with your own expectations of yourself, and you can't do that, and you can't. Speaking of expectations, the draft people. There's nothing for people to go off of. You have no competition these days, so you have no idea of where you are at in your physical, and your skills in your sport, and that is so sad. That is one part of it. The whole team aspect and being a family member with your friends is the other part of it. But coronavirus is the only thing that is going to be blurted in the sports world for the rest of its near future.
Yeah, we have it. We're dealing with it. Let's get it done. All right, I think that's good for today. Let's wrap it up.
Thank you, guys. Please hit us up in the DMs. We're going to try to get some Instagram polls going soon, but we want to hear from you guys. Super, super important to us that we have feedback, because look at us. We're like 2 students. We're not anyone important to you. We know that there's super different podcasts out there, and we know that we watch some of them too, but we're here. We're trying to set this up for you to have your voices. This is just as much as who we want to have on our channel is who we follow or who follows us. We want to hear from the people that support the Orion Sportscast, and we want to hear what you guys have to say and what you want to hear from us to talk about. And you can mention your name and we can not mention your name, but this is not about Brandon and Josh. This is about us creating a community called Orion, and that community is a safe place for people to talk about sports.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. I'll post all the links down below where to find us, the website, and until then, stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask.